Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, friends. Good morning, sir. We are from Group 5. We would like to present our materials about subordinate clouds. Now, introducing my group members, they are Aidin Hasan, Fany, Amelia, Rozani, Fanesa, Athaya, Azzahra, Allya, and then Alifficka, Lourensia. Now, moving on to the first speaker, let's have Aidin as the first speaker to present his review article. Aidin, time is yours.
Thank you, moderator. Okay, this is my review article. The title is Analysis of the Use of Coordination, Subordination in Professional Legal Discourse. International Journal International on Studies in English Language and Literature, volume 2, number 9, page 12 to 16. Year 2014, author Emmanuel C. Sardama, PhD, reviewer Aidin Hasan, date 12 November 2021. Introduction. Legal language is the language used by lawyer and other legal professionals in the course of their works. It exhibits this distinctive feature that how much the prevalence of archaic and traditional form of expression. The device fall into two broad categories: coordination, correlation, and subordination conjunction. The coordination and subordination device are used in text to hang bits of information together in order to create coherent text. This study examines how the two categories of connector are used in professional legal text and how they contribute to complexity of professional legal text. Research question or aims. First, to identify the prevalent coordinator and subordinator in text forming the study corpus. Second, to reflect on implication of coordinator and subordinator in professional legal discourse. Research method. The study consists of 6 steps which were subjected to qualitative analysis. This approach formed the basis of most of the modern attempts to characterize the structure of the different languages. The analysis carried out was therefore based on the use of coordination and subordination in professional legal form, both not as they are generally used in linguistics. Next, finding and discussion. On this 16th instance of the use of or as an explicit indicator of coordinate structure were found in 2 except as the most prevalent. Its intent signal as independent idea but hang to others. There is no doubt about the fact that average reader or lay audience may find difficulty in interpreting the discourse. The result of this analysis show the nominal group are more complex than the verbal group. In nominal group, all possibilities are explored to ensure all inclusiveness and thereby avoid ambiguity. In the verbal group, the realistic possibilities are summed up. Next conclusion, that both coordinator and subordinator are achieving cohesion in legal discourse, while the coordinator join independent idea to form a single stretch of language. Subordinator, on the other hand, extend the meaning of the main clause. Critical review. This article is explained about the context of coordinate and subordinate in legal document, also the example, however there is no specific of the discussion what of the text that most found or used in legal document. Advantage. We understand about the coordinate and subordinate in sentence which on the legal document and how to analyze. Disadvantage, there is no specific type, the coordinate or subordinate that used in document, and general conclusion by the author about the use of coordinate and subordinate in legal discourse. That's all about me. Back to moderator.
Okay, thank you, Aidin, for your review. Such a great explanation. Now we will have Alifficka Lourensia as the second speaker. Alifficka Lourensia, time is yours.
Okay, thank you, Nessa. The title is an analysis of second year's English department students' ability in using subordinate conjunction. And next. Journal of English Language Teaching, Volume 8, Number 2, page 280 until 285, and years 2019, and the author Asti and Fitri Octavia, reviewer Alifficka Gusti Lourensia, and date 13 October 2021. Introduction. Grammar is a key concept in the general theory of languages. Grammar is very important, if not as the heart of language, at least as a fairly important aspect of language learning and teaching. The importance of grammar is also strengthened by Callan O. He states that with good grammar, students will be helpful in delivering their ideas, message, and feeling to listeners or readers. Language would be disorganized without grammar and cause some communication problems. Grammar influences the meaning of words that we want to transfer to other people. Wrong grammar pattern will make the wrong meaning or perception. It means that grammar helps the language learner to avoid misunderstanding in communication. Subordinate conjunction joins two clauses or two in a way that makes one grammatically depends on the other. Subordinate conjunction are usually used in the complex sentence. The second year students of English department at UNP are expected to have a good ability in using subordinate conjunction because they have already learned. Research question or aims. This research aims to know the students' ability and their difficulties in using subordinate conjunction. And method, this study employs descriptive qualitative research methods. Quantitative research is a form of study that collects numerical data from a large number of people using equipment that ask and answer prepared questions. The primary purpose of descriptive research is to accurately characterize the fact and characteristic of the items and subject of investigation. Finding and discussion. First, students' ability in using subordinate conjunction. First, in part 1, the maximum score was 1990 for category A, excellent, and the lowest score was 20 for category A, fail. Only one student received the highest scores, while X students received the lowest mark. It indicates that students had difficulty filling in the blanks with the right sort of subordinate conjunction to finish the sentences and to comply with the context of the phrases. Second, in part 2, the highest category A excellent score was 100, while the lowest category D score was 40, fail. There were 3 students who received the highest score, while only one student received the lowest mark. Third, in part 3, the maximum score was 100 for category A, excellent, and the lowest score was 0 for category E, fail. There were 2 students who received the highest scores, while only one student had the lowest score. Based on the explanation above, it could be seen that the highest mean score was in part 2. The mean score of part 2 was 67 with category B. The mean score of part 1 was 46.06 with category D. It can be said that the students had the fail ability because they had trouble in filling the blank with the appropriate types of subordinate conjunction to complete the sentences and also to agree with the context of the sentences. The most difficult part was part 1, which instructed the students to fill in the blank with the appropriate subordinate conjunction. The means of the student's score was used to know the category of the student's ability in using subordinate conjunction. And second, students' difficulties in using subordinate conjunction. The researcher could analyze kind of difficulties that students usually face in using subordinate conjunction. First, the most of the students still confused with all categories of subordinate conjunction. Second, they had less understanding about the function of subordinate conjunction themselves. Then, there are also some students who do not know how to use it in combining sentence because they do not know what are independent clause and dependent clause. Besides that, most of them still get difficulty when they are asked to decide appropriate subordinate conjunction in completing the sentence. At last, some of them do not understand about the context of sentences. Conclusion and suggestion. Based on 990 items analyzed, it was found that the second-year students' ability in using subordinate conjunction in English Department of Universitas Negeri Padang is fair because the average score of students is 57.33. The students have good ability in answering question part 2, which demands the student to combine sentences with existing subordinate conjunction. It is difficult for them to decide what types of subordinate conjunction that agree with the sentences based on its meaning. Besides, it is undesirable for some students which sentence will be a dependent and an independent clause, and the use of punctuation in combined sentences. The students should improve their ability in using subordinate conjunction by comprehending the type subordinate conjunction and the use of punctuation. They also must understand the context of sentence to avoid the mistake in using subordinate conjunction. Every teacher should give opportunities to the students to be more active in learning because it has the benefit of enhancing the student's ability. Critical review. This article discusses an analysis of second-year English department students' abilities in using subordinate conjunction. This article is very short, concise, and clear. This article uses language that is easy to understand, but the writing is used in this article is very small. And advantages, this article is very good and the sentence used are easy to understand. And disadvantages, the writing use is very small. And thank you.
Okay, thank you, Alifficka, for your explanation. Now, moving on to the third speaker, we will have Azzahra Allya. Azzahra Allya, time is yours.
Thank you, moderator. Next, Aidin. Okay, I will present my presentation. The title is Subordinate Clauses in the Boscombe Valley Short Story. Journal Elysian Journal, volume 1, number 2, page 134 until 142, year 2021. Authors Ni Koma Indriani, Gusti Bagus Wahyu Nugraha Putra, Ni Nyoman Deni Aryaningsih. Reviewer Azzahra Fitri. Date November 14, 2021. Next. Introduction. The function of language is to convey our feeling, idea, and information. To convey all of them, we should arrange our words in appropriate ways. The one way to arrange the words is by using the right grammar. In English grammar, there are many devices that develop the grammar, such as structure of word, phrases, clauses, and sentences. There are 4 types of sentence, which are simple sentence, compound sentence, complex sentence, and compound complex sentence. Subordinate clause is a clause that is joined to the main clause with subordinating conjunction. The function of subordinate clause as a dependent clause rather than a cohort. In this study was emphasized the types of subordinate clause to avoid misunderstanding in the use of subordinate clause and conjunction, as well as analyze the constituent structure by using tree diagram. The data source of this study is the Boscombe Valley short story that was the one-off story from Sherlock Holmes short story by Conan Doyle. Next. Research questions or aims. The aim of this study is to analyze the types of subordinate clause in complex sentence found in the Boscombe Valley short story and the constituent structure of the subordinate clause. Next. This study used descriptive qualitative method in analyzing the type of subordinate clause. The data was taken from the Boscombe Valley short story by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle and were collected by using library and note-taking technique. Next. Finding and discussion. The first one, subordinate clause as a complement clause. Data. First data, I know that didn't James do it. The subordinate clause that James didn't do it is complement clause that modified the verb of main clause now. Second, you said that you wish to see me here. The sentence above consists of one main clause and one subordinate clause. The clause you wish to see me here has relationship with or modified the verb of the main clause which said. Next. Relative clause. The man who is entered was a strange figure. The clause who is entered is modified the noun phrase of main clause the man. Relative clause is introduced by a relative pronoun and the subordinate clause marked with the one of relative pronoun who. Data 4. One was an old man whose name is not mentioned. The clause whose name is not mentioned is modified the noun phrase of main clause and clause old man and the subordinate clause marked with the one of relative pronoun whose. Adverbial clause, data 5. You will tell me if you have any news tomorrow. The subordinate clause, if you have any news tomorrow, modify the whole main clause. You will tell me in order to tell if you have any news or information. Please tell the information to me. Data 6. I saw no one near my father when I returned. The subordinate clause I returned modified the whole main clause I saw no one near my father ordered to add more information about the time of something happened. Next. Conclusion. This article concludes that complement clause is marked when the verb in main clause equals with the subordinate clause. It means this clause modifies the verb of main clause. While in relative clause, the noun in noun phrase equals with the subordinate clause. That means the clause modifies the noun. Furthermore, adverbial clause is when the subordinate clause modifies a whole clause or the whole sentence. Next. Critical review. This article is easy to read because this article gives example about type of subordinate clause in the Boscombe Valley short story. But the researcher didn't give some detailed explanation about subordinate clause and the type of subordinate clause itself. Next. Advantage. The advantage of this article is people can understand from the example that given, the words are familiar that make easy to read. Disadvantages. The disadvantages of this article is not recommended for new learner because they didn't give detailed explanation about the material and there are some mistyping on this article that make reader confused. Okay, back to moderator.
Okay, thank you, Azzahra, for your explanation. Now it's my turn to explain my review article. Next, Aidin. So the title is The Study of Subordinate Clauses in China Daily Newspaper, Jurnal Mahasaraswati dan Pasar University, Volume 8, Number 2, pages 123 until 131. Year 2020, the authors are Nilu Satya Prabhawati, I Gusti Bagus Wahyu Nugraha, and I Wahyan Sidakarya. Reviewer me, Fanesa Maharani, date 9 of November 2021. Next. Introduction. Syntax is one of the studies in linguistics that focus on the study of structure in sentence. To make the statement grammatically correct, it should have combination of phrases, clauses, and sentences. One type of multiple sentences is complex sentence. Complex sentence is a sentence that contains one main clause and one or more subordinate clauses. Main clause is a clause that can stand alone, or we can call it independent clause. Subordinate clause is a clause that cannot stand alone or dependent clause, and it needs to be supported by subordinate conjunction. The main focus in this research is to find subordinate clauses in the complex sentence on China Daily Newspaper. China Daily Newspaper is newspaper in China which contains international forum and China activities that use English as their language. Next. Research aim. The aim of this study is to find out the types of subordinate clauses in complex sentence. The research method. The method used in collecting data is library research. To collect the data, the newspaper is being read intensively. Then the author write down the complex sentences found in newspaper. Next, the author classified the data based on their types of subordinate clauses. In analyzing the data, author used descriptive qualitative method. Next. This is the tables. This is the findings. Next. Findings and discussion, complement clause. He told China Daily during his first visit to China that he is enthusiastic about the project for many reasons. The data above is called complex sentence because it contains main clause and one subordinate clause. The main clause is he told China Daily during his first visit to China. Is incomplete because it needs modifier, either noun phrase or clause to make the sentence grammatically correct. Therefore, the subordinate that he is enthusiastic about the project for many reasons was added in order to modify the verb told in the main clause. Next. Next is relative clause. The exhibition, which runs through February 9, includes a selection of work curated from 3 donations by the artist's family to the National Museum in 2012, 2014, and 2017. The data above contains main clause and subordinate clause, which consists of a relative pronoun, which the subordinate clause modifies the noun exhibition and completes the slot of subject of the main clause. Next. Adverbial clause. Qinghai's oldest Buddhist temple is dedicated to Wen Xing's long stay in Yushu, as she traveled from today's Sean, Sanse province, to Lhasa in the 7th century. The subordinate clause here belongs to adverbial clause, which modifies the whole clause. It begins with the complementizer as, in which revert to the adverbial clause of time. As she traveled from today's Sean, Sanse province to Lhasa in the 7th century is a subordinate clause because it indicates the time that another event happened. Next, conclusion. Based on the data, all types of subordinate clauses were found. It functioned as modifier of complex sentence in this object of study. Among the 3 types of subordinate clauses, relative clauses is the most frequently used, which is 32 or 52% from the total data, and followed by adverbial clause, which is 20 data or 33%. The least frequently used is complement clause, which is 9 data or 15% from total data. Next. Critical review. Overall, this article has provided a clear and informative data. The authors explain each of the data clearly and they use daily vocabulary, so the readers can understand this article without having a hard time trying to translate the words. The findings and discussion meets the aim of this research as well. Next. Advantages. Students can learn from this article. They can learn about types of subordinate clause and how to use it. Disadvantages. There are no suggestions from the authors of this article for the readers. There is no suggestion for future research as well. That's all from me. Now it's turn for Fany, Amelia, Rozani as the last speaker. Fany, time is yours.
Okay, thank you, moderator. Now I'll present about my review article. The title is Analyzing Main and Subordinate Clauses in the Verbs Magazines, Jurnal Bahasa Sastra dan Budaya, Volume 2, Number 2, page 131 until 137. Year 2021. Authors Amanda Arifani, Irnela Noprianti, and Sinta Desti. Reviewer Fany Amelia Rozani, date November 12, 2021. Next. Introduction. A clause is a syntactic unit that has characteristics such as sentence, but clauses are not sentence. Clause can appear in our daily conversation and what we read, like novels, magazines, and others. This study intends for EFL learners to understand the main and subordinate clause in the magazine. Next. The researcher aims to know the main clause and subordinate clause in the magazine. And research method, the data are taken from several articles in the Words magazine. We use descriptive qualitative to indicate how the main clause is applied and used. The analysis was done manually by reading the article one by one and then marking which ones are included in the main and subordinate clauses. Next. Finding and discussion, table one. From the first data with 3 titles from magazine, the lowest number of main clause that appears in data 1 is news entitled No Pisacus, Internal Patients. The words used from the 2 points above are the word after as, if, what. Table 2, from the second data with 3 titles from the magazine, the highest number of subordinate clauses that appear in data 2 is news entitled Future Big Hits Fourth Generation, BTS, First English Language Single Dynamite, was produced as disco. Subordinating conjunction are essential parts of complex sentence that include at least 2 clauses. The researcher aimed to know the main clause and subordinate clause in the magazine. The highest word of subordinate clause that often appears is that, for example, in sentence K-pop's disco. Next. Conclusion, the most commonly found subordinate word is that, where the word functions as an explanatory sentence because it is included in the subordinate conjunction. From the result of the discussion, it can be seen that most of the main clauses are in the article No Pisacos Eternal Patience. Critical review, this article can already explain what subordinate clause is for readers. Overall, this journal is quite complete and meets the rating standards. The author explained the related topic clearly. However, there are some things that are critical to the review. The method described are also quite clear, but there are some explanation of parts that are unclear or chaotic, so that they are repetitive sentences that give less effective explanation, and the table is too simple, so there is less explanation for the reader. Next. Advantages, get a new vocabulary and get the knowledge of what a subordinate clause is. Disadvantage, the conclusion and introduction are too short and there is no suggestion for the future research. Okay, thank you. Back to moderator.
Okay, thank you, Fany, for the presentation. That's all from our speakers. Now we're going to read the gaps of the articles and read the possible research. Next, Aidin. So the gaps in Article 1. This article discusses about the use of coordination and subordination in professional legal discourse. However, there is no example of the coordination and the subordination of the text. Article 2. This article doesn't provide much data. Also, the author didn't give a good explanation about the example of subordinate clause in those sentences. Next. The third article, the study examined, will focus on the main 10 subordinate clauses applied in the sentence on every Weaver's magazine. This research is expected to be a reference for the public to clarify the meaning and type of subordinate clauses. So on the other hand, this article also mentions type of subordinate clauses. The fourth article, this article discusses about students' ability in using subordinate conjunctions. However, this article focuses only on subordinate conjunctions. And this article doesn't provide examples of subordinate conjunction. Next. The last article. This article focused about the example from the data, but they didn't put detailed explanation about subordinate clause itself. Next, here are the possible research. First, analyzing main and subordinate clauses in the Indonesian newspaper. Second, analysis of coordination and subordination in speech text. Third, the ability of students using subordinate clauses in writing. Fourth, analysis of students' ability in using subordinate clauses. And fifth, analysis of subordinate conjunction in Toy Story movie script. Okay, I think that's all from our groups. We're sorry if we made any mistakes. And if you have a question or suggestion, maybe you can type it in the forum discussion. Thank you.